Soul piercing through the Zhou Dynasty, Lu Yun was shocked to find that he had become a brother-alive eunuch. He had intended to live an honest life, but he never realized that the Grand Emperor of Zhou was actually a woman. Empress Xiaoyunzi, the Empress is coming to serve tonight. Lu Yun. Your Majesty. I have already. Empress Dowager. No, no, serve the Empress well. From now on, you will be my confidant. Lu Yun. Your Majesty, I have become your confidant for the 20th time. Lu Yun looked straight at the Empress who had taken off her male attire, with only one thought in his heart. There are two types of women in the world. One way is Empress. Another type. Women from all over the world. Chapter 1. Soul Becoming a Eunuch. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the state of Great Zhou, the palace of the virtuous concubine. Lu Yun suddenly turned around. He looked around in shock at the intricately carved dragons and painted phoenixes, the ancient and exquisite room decorations, and the unparalleled beauty on the bed, his face full of confusion. Didn't I call myself 698? How did it turn into her lying down? Xiaoyunzi, what's wrong with you? Upon hearing this delicate cry, a large amount of memories flooded into his mind, and in an instant, Lu Yun almost cried. What the hell? My own great man, how could he become a eunuch with his soul? He lowered his head and widened his eyes, half of which was his hands gripping the smooth and jade-like back of the Lady Shu, and the other half was that he was a fake eunuch. Lu Yun quickly picked up his legs and had to pout slightly comically, blocking them with his robe. Xiaoyunzi, your massage technique is really comfortable. No wonder Lord Hai strongly recommended you to our palace before his death. Xu Fei said, enjoying herself lying on her stomach. Hearing the words, Lu Yun was embarrassed. Fortunately, other people in the dormitory had been told to go out. He could only follow his memory and apologize. What the Empress said was that acupuncture and moxibustion and massage, to beg for children and help young, and to beautify his face. When I was young, I followed Haigong Public School. In the future, as long as the Empress wanted, I promised to be there at any time. He was very embarrassed, originally a person who rose to power by massaging and flattering the concubines in the harem. Lu Yun held on to the delicate willow waist of Lady Shu with both hands, and the faint beauty below made it difficult for him to divert his gaze. TSK TSK TSK. I can't bear it anymore. Xiaoyunzi. I'm here. Consort Shu suddenly turned around, with a stunning appearance. Empress. Lu Yun quickly got out of bed and half knelt down on the ground, quietly holding down his restlessness with one hand, almost being seen. You said you can ask for your son Fuyang. Lu Yun was taken aback for a moment. He recalled that the medical skills and massage techniques he had learned in his original body did indeed have this effect, so he nodded and said, Yes, madam. As long as I let the servant massage for a long time, I can achieve that effect. Great, Xiaoyunzi. Go and give your Majesty a press, your Majesty. He has never touched anyone in our harem. Perhaps there is something difficult to say. What? Crouching trough, the Emperor does not lift. What a waste of such a delicacy. Seeing him not speaking, Lady Shu's gaze fell on Lu Yun and she said, Don't worry, although your Majesty doesn't like others discussing his dragon body, you are just a little eunuch and he won't be on guard against you. You dare to press your Majesty, what is there to bear for you in this palace? As soon as she finished speaking, Lady Shu said coldly again, But if you can't handle your Majesty well, this palace will take your dog head. What a ruthless woman. Lu Yun's mouth twitched and he quickly nodded, saying, I'm going to see your Majesty now. Okay, Xiao, come in. Hurry up and take Xiaoyunzi to see the Emperor. Xu Fei shouted towards the door. Then a palace maid walked in and took Lu Yun to find the Emperor. Along the way, Lu Yun almost couldn't resist cursing his mother. What kind of nonsense did he travel through? Everyone else is an emperor, a crown prince, and I have become a fake eunuch. However, take it as it comes, and Lu Yun is not someone who gives up easily. He was constantly searching for ways to cope along the way, as well as memories of the past. Quickly, the two of them arrived outside the Qianqing palace. The door was open, and they could see several ministers standing inside, discussing matters with the emperor. Wait for now. Yes, Sister Xiao. Lu Yun stood quietly outside the door, his eyes drooping, like a qualified eunuch. However, Yu Guang had a panoramic view of the scene inside the hall. Your Majesty, regarding the rectification of the 4 southeastern provinces, General Shangguan Yun has suddenly fallen ill. I believe that only General Xiao He, the brave cavalry general, can go to replace the general in suppressing it. I would like to suggest that General Xiao He has outstanding military talents and has been guarding the northern border for 10 years. The Xiongnu did not dare to break the ban for 10 years. If he were to lead the rebellion, he would definitely suppress it. I am attached. In the court, there were constantly courtiers appearing to support the proposal. But the emaciated Emperor of Zhou on the dragon chair didn't look good, because that was not what he wanted to hear. Through memory, Lu Yun knew that the brave cavalry general Xiao He, who was supported by these courtiers, was the biological brother of Lady Shu. General Shangguan Yun, on the other hand, was the father of the empress, who was still old. Naturally, the courtiers began to approach the younger and more promising Xiao He. The matter of changing generals on the battlefield is of great significance. Dear officials, please step down and I will think again. Emperor Liang Jing rubbed his brow and suppressed his anger, saying. He wanted to promote a newcomer, but the ministers below were all standing in line to recommend Xiao He for battle, and there had already been a phenomenon of forming alliances to fight against imperial power. A courtier immediately stood up and said, Your Majesty, war is imminent. I want you to step down. Liang Jing angrily slapped the dragon case and stood up to roar. The atmosphere inside the hall was solemn, and the ministers quickly lowered their heads and retreated in frustration. After all the courtiers retreated, Xiao led Lu Yun into the main hall. Your Majesty, I have been ordered by Lady Shufei to bring Xiaoyunzi to diagnose your pulse and push your acupoints. Liang Jing lifted his tired eyes and glanced at Lu Yun, saying, Are you the little Yunzi in the harem who often pushes acupoints for his concubines? Your Majesty, do you think this is serious? Lu Yun uttered a secret roast and quickly made a bow and replied, Your Majesty, you are a slave. Liang Jing squinted his eyes. Shufei taught so well that even a eunuch beside her wouldn't kneel when she saw me. Go away, I don't need you. Ah. Lu Yun was shocked for a moment. Next to her, Xiao seemed to have anticipated this situation and immediately said, Your Majesty, Empress Dowager Shufei personally asked Xiaoyunzi to diagnose. She thought it was very useful, so she asked the maid to bring Xiaoyunzi to diagnose you. You should know that Empress Dowager Shufei is worried about you and has been lost in tea and rice all day. Liang Jing intended to get angry and refuse, but upon hearing this, a hint of fear flashed in his eyes. He glanced at Lu Yun with his head drooping again and thought to himself, a eunuch who knows massage is true, and knows how to diagnose pulse with medical skills is a bit ridiculous. Anyway, why not use this little eunuch to block the mouths of those concubines in the harem for himself, so that he can hide his secrets? Alright, you all go down and let him come over to diagnose my pulse and push acupoints for me. Upon hearing the sound, the others retreated one after another. Lu Yun carefully walked up the dragon platform step by step, and when Liang Jing reached out a hand, he slowly climbed up. Move quickly, I still have many important matters to deal with, Liang Jing said impatiently. Lu Yun responded cautiously, closing his eyes and feeling his pulse carefully. A leisurely fragrance wafted into his nostrils. At the next moment, he suddenly shook. Pulse. Menstrual disorders. You. He looked at Liang Jing with a shocked expression on his face, and the two of them met. The former was shocked, while the latter's eyes flashed with panic. So you're really meowing, you're just a woman. You don't have that kind of thing, why don't you lift an egg? Chapter 2. Ma Lu. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Qianqing bumps in the middle. One emperor, one eunuch. The two looked at each other for a moment. Do you see any problem with me? Liang Jing stared at Lu Yun, his eyes carrying a certain unknown smell. Lu Yun pondered for 2 seconds and said, Your Majesty, the dragon is healthy. I will leave first. He almost wanted to cry at this moment. What kind of terrifying secret is this? No wonder this emperor has never liked people to touch her body, just afraid of revealing it. You don't need to leave. Liang Jing's voice was very cold. She grabbed the sword hanging next to her and drew it out with a clang. The imperial physician who treated me before said the same thing, but later the secret almost leaked out. So I wronged you. Drafted sister, knowing grievances, you still have to force others. Your Majesty, I keep my mouth shut. Even if I dream, I won't talk in my sleep. Please let go. Lu Yun raised his hands high and begged for mercy. It took him 8 lifetimes of blood mold to come here with his soul. No, this is related to my national fortune in the Zhou Dynasty. After you die, I will definitely bury you and comfort your family. Liang Jing didn't pretend anymore, her voice returning to its original soft and sticky. No, no, no. I'm the only one left in the servant's family. Grass, you scumbag attacked me. You dare to curse me. Why did you even kill me? I dare to hit you. Bold. Lu Yun dodged the heavenly sword on his side and kicked Liang Jing in the abdomen, directly knocking her to the ground. Seeing the situation, Lu Yun is overwhelmed by the mountains. He grabs Liang Jing's sword hand with both hands, and the other side bites him on the shoulder when he opens his mouth. Hush, bitch, let go. In the next moment, Lu Yun, who couldn't stop feeling the pain, also felt evil from the edge of his gallbladder. He released one hand and grabbed Liang Jing's vital body. Dare you? Liang Jing stared at Yuan Meimu, angry and angry. He wanted to call the guards in and kill this bastard, fearing that his secret as a woman would be leaked. In a hurry, she grabbed onto Lu Yun's crotch with her free hand. The next moment. Ah oh! Lu Yunlang howled, the excruciating pain made him numb all over. Liang Jing's palm also stiffened, and he remained in place. She lowered her head in a daze to look at the seat she had seized, and by a stroke of luck, she pinched it again. Hiss. Lu Yun sucked in the cold air backwards. Suddenly, Liang Jing's short-circuited brain regained consciousness, and he let go with a cry of surprise. With a blushing face and red ears, he said shyly, How dare you? You dare to cholera in the harem. I want to destroy your 9 tribes. Lu Yun tightly restrained her hands and sneered, Your Majesty, be careful when speaking. I'm afraid you don't want to spread the news about your woman becoming emperor. I'm sorry, slut. Sleeping trough, poisonous woman. Suddenly. Bang bang. A sound of knocking came from the palace door. Your Majesty, Lady Shufei is requesting an audience. Liang Jing's expression panicked and he hurriedly said, Release it quickly. I don't, I'll let you go. What should I do if you settle the accounts after autumn? Why don't we just do this, I'll hold you down, and we'll end up together. Bastard, dare you threaten me? Liang Jing was furious and struggled a few times, only to find that this slut had such great strength that she couldn't break free at all. Your Majesty, have I come to see you? Outside the door, the voice of Lady Shu rang out. Ifei, wait a moment, I will be ready soon. Liang Jing was completely panicked and couldn't help but grit his teeth and say, Okay, I promise you not to investigate. Let go. Okay, you have no joking words, deceiving others will not lead to easy death. Lu Yun finally let go of his hands in frustration. Liang Jing gave him a cold glance, his face turning red. He quickly got up, disregarding the torn inner garment, and quickly put on the dragon robe neatly. After everything was settled, she returned to the dragon position and snorted, "Why don't you go over and open the door for your master?" "I'll go now, servant." Lu Yun lowered his eyebrows and pleased his eyes. He knew he couldn't offend this woman to death. The other party was the emperor, and there were 100 ways to save his life. Squeak. As Lu Yun opens the door. After glancing at Lu Yun who opened the door, Lady Shu walked slowly to Liang Jinglong's desk with lotus steps. She leaned slightly behind her and then said, "Your Majesty, how did Xiaoyunzi serve you? Have you felt that the dragon's body is a bit more comfortable?" "Well, the person pushed by Empress AI has her own technique. After he pushed the acupoints, I felt much more comfortable. In the future, I will let this little cloud son stay by my side and help me regulate my body. What do you think?" Upon hearing these words, Lady Shu's eyes lit up and her heart was filled with joy. If the emperor's health is good, then he can spoil himself. At the same time, she glanced at Lu Yun, who was standing beside her, and felt a little more satisfied with him. It seemed that this little eunuch was indeed useful. Lu Yun, however, was covered in hair. What's up with the empress? She left herself behind to silence her, wasn't she? No, I can't just accept fate like this. Seeing Lu Yun's face full of excitement, he shouted excitedly. Congratulations to your Majesty. The sudden sound stunned both Liang Jing and Lady Shu. What is the name of a ghost? I saw Lu Yun arching his hand and saying, when I was just pushing the acupoint for your Majesty, I found that your Majesty's dragon body was still healed. I have achieved success here, so I won't disturb your Majesty and Empress Qing Xiu here. I'm leaving. I want to leave. Liang Jing stood up suddenly and guessed Lu Yun's desire to escape. He squinted his eyes and said, I know my body best. I asked you to stay and continue to recuperate for me. Do you want to resist the order? I dare not. Empress. Lu Yun didn't finish speaking, meaning he hoped she would plead for him. Consort Shu was shocked. It was the first time she had seen such a domineering and imposing emperor. Xiaoyunzi pushed his acupoint as expected, not only adjusting the emperor's body, but also making him so powerful and domineering. It's better for him to stay. In the future, he will keep an eye on your Majesty, the Empress, and those despicable people for our palace. Don't let him touch your Majesty's dragon bed. And if your Majesty has any other ideas, Xiaoyunzi can also transmit the message to this palace as soon as possible. As her thoughts flowed, Lady Shu also agreed and looked at Lu Yun, saying, Xiaoyunzi, your Majesty's dragon body is important. You will be able to serve your Majesty well in the future, you know. I know your sister. Lying trough. It's a shame that I still treat you as a backer. You scumbag sold me when you said you wanted to. With a sorrowful and indignant thought in his heart, Lu Yun still had to smile and arch his hand, saying, Whatever your Majesty and Empress say, I will do as I please. After speaking, she stepped aside and watched as the two women chatted on the dragon platform. In no time, Consort Shu was ready to leave. Xiaoyunzi, I still haven't read the memorial. Please send Lady Shu back for me, and then you will come to the Taihe Palace to serve me. I obey orders. Lu Yun left with Lady Shu under the watchful eye of Liang Jing. Just as she walked out of the palace door a few steps away, Consort Shu called him to follow her and confirmed again, You said your Majesty has recovered, but he said you still need to take care of him. Is his dragon body really good or not? Lu Yun took a sudden step and saw Liang Jing standing inside the palace gate, sticking to the door. He snorted and threatened himself. Okay, you brought it on yourself. Thinking about it, he didn't mean to lower his voice and proudly said, Empress, your Majesty's dragon body has recovered. Before, under the pushing of the servant's acupoint, you have already demonstrated the majesty of the heavenly dragon. The heavenly dragon is majestic. The Lady Shu's eyes lit up in a flash, and her face was also painted with a blush. She said with joy, "Xiaoyunzi, you did a good job, and this palace has many rewards." After speaking, with a wave of her hand, Xiao, who was following her, took out a 500 taels of silver bill and handed it to him. Along the way, Lady Shu was filled with excitement. She decided to go back and take a shower, wash herself thoroughly, and then go to the Taihe Palace to serve as a bed attendant. The emperor, who has been treated by our palace, naturally cannot let other fox spirits cut off their beards. After escorting Lady Shu back to the palace, Lu Yun was immediately taken by the eunuch to the Taihe Palace. As soon as he entered, he saw Liang Jing sitting on the dragon chair carved by Jinsi Nan with a face full of iron, glaring angrily at him. Deathly eunuch! Why did you act recklessly and tell Lady Shu that I have regained my power? Ah! She now wished she could peel off Lu Yun's skin and cramp to relieve her hatred. Returning to the emperor, is it difficult? Do you want me to tell the empress that you don't have it? As the empress, Liang Jing's expression suddenly boasted. She knew it was difficult to conceal this matter. But when her father was alive, her older brothers passed away one after another. So although she was born as a daughter, the late emperor raised her as a boy from a young age in order to prevent outsiders from taking away the Zhou Dynasty. But so what? Liang Jing, after all, she is still a woman. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but sigh. I wish I were a man. If I were to satisfy Lady Shu's rough hooves once, she wouldn't bother me again. Lu Yun was awkwardly unable to answer on the side. However, Liang Jing seemed to suddenly think of something, with a pair of eyes fixed on him tightly. Yes, man. Your Majesty, I am a man, but I don't want to become anyone other than a man. Lu Yun felt guilty. Shouldn't this poisonous woman really castrate him? Who wants you to become someone other than me? I want you to satisfy Princess Shu when she comes to serve me later. What? Chapter 3. Shadow Guard. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Do you want him to satisfy Lady Shu? Lu Yun's face was full of confusion, completely unable to understand what kind of brain circuit this woman was. Your Majesty, do you want me to sleep with Lady Shu? Are you crazy? Is this emperor's concubine someone else can sleep with? Is it possible that this woman is digging a pit for herself? If you don't sleep, concubine Shu, when she comes, my secret will be exposed. Are you forcing me to execute you Lingqi first? Liang Jing's tone carried a strong killing intent. Lu Yun's neck shrank. Is this special for real? Do you really want him to sleep with Lady Shu? How about, do you want to help me? Whatever your Majesty asks, I'll do as I please. Anyway, it's not that I want to sleep with the Empress. Seeing the timid appearance of Lu Yun's painting, Liang Jing snorted coldly and briefly explained to him how to do it later. Suddenly, the window of Taiqing Palace rang 3 times, one short and one long. Secret code. Does anyone use a secret code when they see the emperor? Lu Yun was shocked and saw Liang Jing suddenly sit up straight. In an instant, he regained the imperial dignity and said to the window, "Come in." The next moment, the window opened and a figure like a ghost slid past, kneeling in front of Liang Jing. Shadow Guard 13, pay respects to your Majesty. Sleeping trough, Master. Lu Yun's scalp tingled. Through his original memory, he knew that there were not only one country in this continent, but also many countries that had developed strong martial arts. Those countries existed, and killing an ordinary person was like pinching an ant. So he had the intention of evading others, so he tried to say, "I'll go out first." "No, you have to keep it, don't talk nonsense." Liang Jing's expression was cold and unquestionable. Lu Yun stopped speaking, but took a step back and tried to minimize his sense of presence. Tell me, what happened to General Shangguanyun's serious illness? The person named Yingui 13 looked up at Lu Yun, clearly showing signs of caution. However, Liang Jing said, it doesn't matter. His name is Xiaoyunzi and he is my confidant. Please explain the situation in detail. Shadow Guard 13's face under the black robe was full of shock. The Emperor had other confidants besides Shadow Guard, and they seemed even closer than them. Thinking of this, Shadow Guard 13 did not hesitate and quickly said, Your Majesty, this is what I found in the daily tea and rice of General Shangguanyun. He then took out a wooden box. Opening it, apart from the black and purple bloodstains, there was actually a milky white wriggling worm on top, covered in eyes all over, which looked very penetrating. Standing in a muffled voice next to him, Lu Yun's spine suddenly turned cold and he shouted loudly, How dare you show such a dangerous thing to your Majesty? As he spoke, he pulled back Liang Jing, who was approaching out of curiosity. Liang Jing's face turned cold in vain. 13. Shadow Guard 13-1 was clever and hastily closed the wooden box, sealing it to death. He quickly retreated more than 10 steps before taking a lingering look at the unharmed Emperor and Lu Yun with fear, saying, Your Majesty, I deserve to die. I have forgotten the harm of this thing, and I beg your Majesty's forgiveness. At the same time, with a grateful glance at Lu Yun, the little eunuch was not simple. He had a better reaction than himself. Liang Jing's face gradually softened, but he coldly lowered his head to look at the paw that Lu Yun had pressed on her chest. Upon seeing this, Lu Yun also lowered his head and noticed the soft part he had pinched. He immediately withdrew his hand and chuckled. So, even though it's tied up, I can't hold it in one hand. I'm going to suffocate myself if I let it go, right? I don't know what Liang Jing was thinking in his heart, but he continued with a cold face and said, Was that a goo insect just now? Did General Shangguanyun get sick because of this? Yes, Your Majesty, I am also very confused. There is no such poison in the territory of our great Zhou Dynasty. Gubu only grows in the territory of Miao, which is separated from us. Why did the general fall for this kind of thing? Upon hearing these words, Lu Yun couldn't help but laugh and said, What's wrong with being separated by a country? The general who gained the most from this insect infestation is the one who colluded with him. One sentence. Let Liang Jing and Shadow Guard 13 inside the house keep their eyes wide open. Yeah, it's so far away, how could Miao country come to poison it? No wonder all the civil and military officials in the Qin dynasty recommended Xiao He to suppress the rebellion. That's why. General Shangguanyun fell, and their Xiao family became the biggest beneficiaries. Damn it. Liang Jing clenched his fist tightly and looked at Shadow Guard 13 in the next second, saying, 13, you go down. After waiting for Shadow Guard 13 to retreat, she finally let go of all her defenses and leaned weakly on the dragon chair. She looked at Lu Yun, who knew her secret and now seemed to be the only one who could speak the truth, and said, Xiaoyunzi, now that the court is forming factions for personal gain, I have not yet cultivated a new person. My loyal general has been harmed. What do you think I should do? Are you telling a eunuch about this? Lu Yun secretly roasted that he didn't know much about politics. Because he couldn't answer, he directly changed the subject and said, Your Majesty, do you need a massage? Massage? Aren't you good at pushing acupoints? Which acupoint? Lu Yun glanced at it and said foolishly, Massage is more soothing. Besides, Princess Xu is coming later, so it's not appropriate to push your acupoint now. How about another day? Well, that's good. Liang Jing nodded. After a cup of tea. Xiaoyunzi. You, be gentle. Liang Jing leaned against the dragon chair, moaning uncontrollably, feeling so comfortable that he could clearly feel his physical fatigue fading away. She couldn't help but say, Xiaoyunzi, how about you go and inquire about Lady Shu's words for me? What are you prying into? How could Lady Shufei talk to me, a servant, about things other than your Majesty's dragon body? What should we do? I suspect that the elder brother of Consort Shu, Xiao He, is secretly persecuting the general, but I can't find evidence. By the way, you just knew that it was Gu Bu. Do you understand Gu? Why don't you poison her for me? Ahem. Your Majesty, you've overthought me. I only know medical skills, and I don't understand anything about witchcraft, except for being able to recognize them. What can you do? Liang Jing looked at him calmly, like a girl waiting for her lover's candy. Lu Yun was stunned for a moment. Although the Empress had obvious makeup marks on her face that made it difficult to tell her true appearance, her eyes were really talkative, so seductive. After thinking for a moment, Lu Yun said, "You can try to make Lady Shu lose her mind. For example, if you have genuine emotions and ask her when she is extremely happy, she may say the truth." Really? Lu Yun nodded. Liang Jing patted him in agreement and said, "Then I'll rely on you to make Lady Shu extremely happy." Lu Yun's expression collapsed as he was about to say something when suddenly a notice from the palace maid came from outside the door. "I would like to inform your Majesty that Lady Shufei is requesting an audience." Sleeping trough, it's really here. Both people in the room got up in a hurry, and Liang Jing pushed him onto the dragon bed, saying, "Keep an eye on you. I'll leave it to you." After speaking, he directly blew out the candles in the inner hall. Just as Lu Yun was raising questions about whether to escape, he saw Liang Jing go out and open the door to welcome Consort Shu in. As soon as the other party saw the dimness in the hall, they couldn't help but wonder. "Your Majesty, are you?" "Empress Ai, I know what you're thinking." After Liang Jing finished speaking, he closed the door directly and took out a silk scarf, saying, "Empress Ai, don't move. Today, I will take you on a journey around the world, the happiest woman in the world." Upon hearing this, Lady Shu stumbled and rubbed her hands as she pushed her all the way to the dragon bed. Then, Liang Jing gave a cheering expression to Lu Yun and quietly retreated. "Your Majesty." Feeling Liang Jing's hand leaving, Lady Shu panicked and instinctively reached out to pick the silk scarf that covered her eyes. Chapter 4. Threats. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lu Yun grabbed the jade hand of concubine Shu. Next to him, Liang Jing also sweated and glared at him, wiping his neck. He understood the meaning very clearly. If he continued to speak, I would kill you. Okay, this is all because of your threat. Lu Yun's heart turned sideways. Although the lady in front of her was wearing a silk scarf, her figure and skin were smooth and tender. "Your Majesty." There was no other movement from the Emperor, so Lady Shu could only shyly shout out. From then on, without further delay, Lu Yun pinched the chin of Lady Shu with one hand and deeply kissed her delicate red lips. He swam away with his big hand and in no time, the two of them rolled onto the dragon bed. Upon seeing this, Liang Jing curved his mouth and tiptoed out of the inner hall, cutting himself a cup of tea outside. Drink it all in one gulp. Next, the second cup. The third cup. The shy moans inside made her feel dry and tongue twitching. This is what those women in my harem want. Why is it so painful to listen to? And so enjoyable? Shaking his head, Liang Jing didn't let himself think, but he always felt that the waiting time was particularly long. Finally. Just as she suspected that Lady Shu had been shouting for so long and her throat was smoking, she placed her hands on her shoulders. Meanwhile, the tired voice belonging to Lu Yun also came from Pang. "Your Majesty, it's your turn." Liang Jing's ears grew into a lump and said coldly, "You made me wait for 3 hours, it's almost dawn." "Yes, if it weren't for the concern that the sky was about to break, I could still fight for 3 more hours. Lu Yun looked disdainful. Liang Jing turned his head and gave him a white glance. He walked closer to the dragon bed, where Lady Shu's robe and blasphemy spread all over the bed, while she herself, like a dead fish, covered her eyes and lay there panting. Shu Fei. Liang Jing's gaze swept over the crimson on the bright yellow bedsheet, and he reached out to untie the constraints on her eyes. Just then, Lady Shu opened her beautiful eyes, her eyes fixed on her like spring water. Your Majesty, we must reward Xiaoyunzi well. Liang Jing's expression was shocked for a moment, and a strong sense of unease surged in his heart. Can she feel that it was Lu Yun just now? No, she hasn't compared before. Did she secretly see Lu Yun? The next moment, I heard Lady Shu blush and continue. I am so grateful to him. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have known your Majesty was so powerful. After speaking, Lady Shu, like a spoiled child, looked up and leaned against her thighs, hugging her waist with both hands and a satisfied expression on her face. Oh, so it's like this. Well, Empress Ai is right. I really want to reward him heavily. Liang Jing let out a deep breath and thought for a moment before saying, by the way, Empress Ai, I have something I want to ask you. Your Majesty. Shu Fei let out a coquettish anger and buried her head directly, snorting, you didn't get separated like this just now. Did you blame me for asking too much for the first time? Liang Jing sighed helplessly, imitating the tone of Lu Yun and said calmly, not much. If it weren't for going to court later, I would at least be able to fight for 3 more hours. Upon hearing this, Consort Shu tightened his tower even tighter, revealing half of her legs even further outside. She couldn't help but feel a slight friction and shyly said, Your Majesty. You're really amazing. Cough. Liang Jing coughed twice and said, Empress Ai, what is your opinion on General Shang Guanyun's serious illness? Consort Shu suddenly raised her head, her blush still lingering on her face, and she wondered, Your Majesty suddenly asked this question. Is there anything wrong with General Shang Guanyun's illness? Seeing the expression on her face that she didn't want to be fake, Liang Jing probed again, but there's something wrong. I received news that the general was poisoned by goo, and after he fell, all the ministers in the court recommended your brother Xiao He to succeed him and lead troops to suppress the rebellion. The morning breeze swept through the inner hall, causing Lu Yun, who was cleaning his gun outside, to be slightly stunned. Sleeping trough, this woman is too direct. How could she ask someone like this? Women need to be coaxed slowly. She is so direct, it's difficult for Lady Shu sure enough. The expression of Lady Shu on the dragon bed also visibly stiffened for a moment, and she naturally recognized the implied meaning in Liang Jing's words. Recalling that she had just completely conquered this man, she immediately blushed and snuggled up in Liang Jing's arms, saying softly. Your Majesty, I know that you have been worried about the Xiao family monopolizing power, but please rest assured that the Xiao family has been loyal to you from beginning to end. Although I believe that I am not inferior to the Empress Shangguan and like to compare myself with her, it is also a harem competition between us women, and I will not harm your Majesty's country as a result. Although these heartfelt words did not dispel Liang Jing's doubts, they also made her see through a lot. The Xiao family and the Shangguan family have indeed been powerful officials of the Zhou Dynasty throughout history. Although they were vying for power and profit, they all pointed it out and did not commit such treason as they do today. Is there another person who colluded with the Miao state and used poison against the upper officials? And that person is probably still plotting to sow discord between me and their families. Liang Jing's eyes became warmer as he lightly patted concubine Shu's shoulder and nodded, saying, I know what Consort Ai is thinking. I'll go to court first, and Consort Ai will rest in this Taihe palace before returning. Yes, your Majesty. Concubine Shu was satisfied and hugged Liang Jing before kissing her. This action made her feel a bit at a loss, but she thought to herself, suddenly becoming sticky, that Lu Yun was a good trainer. Thinking about it, she put down the curtain and exited the inner hall, while outside Lu Yun had already cleaned up and was waiting. The two exchanged a glance without speaking, and then left the Taihe palace in front and back. After leaving, Liang Jing looked at him with satisfaction and praised, "You did a good job. You go back and rest first, and I will reward you later." "Your Majesty, thank you. You too, come and take good care of Xiaoyunzi to rest." Liang Jing selected 2 eunuchs from her ceremonial guard to take care of Lu Yun. Lu Yun exhaled and watched as Liang Jing left, feeling exhausted all over. It was too difficult to be a eunuch. "Lu Zuzong, please come up and rest, let the servants carry you back." The 2 eunuchs found a sliding rod from somewhere and warmly invited Lu Yun to sit on it. He was also polite, knowing that this was a habit in the palace. Whoever received favor would be flattered by others. Time flies by quickly noon. The incident of Emperor Liang Jing favoring the harem for the first time after ascending the throne quickly spread like a plague throughout the entire harem. Deep inside the palace walls, countless concubines who had been guarding empty rooms since entering the palace were restless. Cunning Hall. "Empress Dowager, have you heard? Last night, Lady Shufei was favored by your Majesty." "Humph, she's just a fox charmer. After I finish bathing in this palace, I'll go see your Majesty tonight. I wish the Empress all the best, and wish her a speedy conception of your Majesty's dragon seed, as the ruler of the imperial palace." "That's natural, and our palace won't forget you either. As long as you listen, I will definitely let your Majesty share the rain and dew." The Empress Shangguan Fenger, dressed in a bright yellow dragon robe, looked towards the direction of the Taihe palace with fiery eyes. Damn it, that despicable person Xiao Mei was able to take the lead. Your Majesty, too, did not notify her of this Empress after recovering. Is it because her father was critically ill that your Majesty had other thoughts? No, I can't sit idly by myself. Chapter 5 Empress. Are you showing off? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xian Xiaoyunzi pays his respects. At noon, Liang Jing summoned Lu Yun, who was very satisfied with last night's incident. And I also believe that this fake eunuch can be used for myself. After all, Lu Yun has already been promised some rewards, so he will not forget them. I have seen your Majesty before. Lu Yun looked at Liang Jing and bowed, saying. He was really enjoying himself last night for 3 hours, and I never expected him to be so strong. It seems that the body that has traveled through is really great, Lady Shufei, and the taste is also good. Now Xiaoming has been saved, but he must also listen to the Empress. Anyway, the two of them are already mutually restrictive and have their own secrets. As long as he comes, he will settle down. Lu Yun actually feels that becoming a fake eunuch in this palace is quite good. Xiaoyunzi, what reward do you want for curing me? Lu Yun stared at Liang Jing's slightly teasing gaze and thought to himself, if it weren't for me, my life would be fine. What reward would I need? It's all up to your Majesty, I just want to serve by your Majesty's side. Liang Jing laughed heartily and pondered for a moment. Why don't I reward you with a position as an imperial father-in-law, always by my side, to share my worries? What do you think? Lu Yun quickly replied, I am in fear. Your Majesty's reward, I am filled with joy. Thank you, Holy Grace. Liang Jing smiled slightly and waved his hand, all right, let's go down. I was a bit tired last night. In no time, someone will specially send you an official robe. Thank you very much, Your Majesty. When Lu Yun said these words, he couldn't help but roll his eyes wide. He said that the tired person should be himself, right? This female emperor didn't do anything last night and just sat outside drinking tea. I am so tired that I am chattering away. The rolling of Lu Yun's eyes was naturally captured by Liang Jing, and she was actually a bit embarrassed. As soon as I thought of the sound from last night, I thought to myself, this little Yunzi sounds quite impressive. Although she is a daughter, the emperor also needs to accept the baptism of this knowledge. It is often found in some popular storybooks that for most men, time is very short. Not like Xiaoyunzi, so grand. Lu Yun returned to his courtyard. Before he could sit down, a eunuch embroidered with a python robe hurriedly led a large group of people over. In his hand, he also personally carried a plate. On top of it, there is an official robe, a waist tag, and a dust brush. Lu Gonggong is here. Upon hearing this title, Lu Yun immediately sat up in shock. Lu Gonggong is the eunuch-in-chief, and his identity is very well known. In this harem, apart from the emperor and empress, it belongs to the noble status of Duke Lu. Even the empress sometimes has to entrust Duke Lu to handle matters. However, at this moment, Duke Lu was extremely flattering and his status was also lowered. Lord Lu, meet you, little six. Lu Yun was taken aback for a moment. How could the eunuch-in-chief respect him so much? I am just an imperial father.in.law, and the eunuch in charge of others is more important than myself. Lu Gonggong, what are you doing? Lu Gonggong chuckled and flattered, Lord Lu, you have cured your Majesty's illness, and you will definitely become a popular figure around your Majesty in the future. Don't be fooled by the fact that your Majesty has only given you the status of Imperial Duke, he is just worried that your promotion may cause dissatisfaction among the people in the harem. Duke Lu, from now on, I will rely on you as the sixth son. For a moment, Lu Yun couldn't react. Last night, he was still a young eunuch. Now, he stood on top of the palace maids and eunuchs in the harem. Lord Lu, please try on this official robe and see if it fits well. Lu Yun nodded. Under the service of the palace maids, Lu Yun put on this official robe, which was indeed very different. It was embroidered with golden silk deer, which was very grand. Just as Lu Yun's official robe was not yet worn, Lady Shu's maid Xiao hurriedly walked over and said, Duke Lu, Lady Shu wants to see you. She is still in the Taihe Palace. Oh. Lu Yun didn't refuse either, after all, Lady Shu Xiaomei had a skin-to-skin relationship with herself. Thinking about the shock last night, Lu Yun felt a sense of unease and eagerness, wanting to lift his gun and mount his horse again, fighting and charging into battle. This waist seems a bit unbearable and a bit sore. Taihe Palace. Concubine Xiaomei tossed and turned for so long last night, she had already lost her strength and was limp. After waking up, it was already now. But she is still very happy. Didn't she become the first person in the harem to be blessed by His Majesty? Once she had undergone this baptism, she felt like a true woman, even her temperament had changed a lot. At this moment, a respectful voice sounded outside the hall. The Empress has arrived. Empress. I only saw Empress Shangguan Fenger, dressed in a bright yellow dragon robe, walking in. She snorted coldly with a hint of displeasure in her words, Sister Xiao, why don't you kneel when you see this palace? Xiaomei lay limply on dragon steps and said weakly, Please forgive me, sister. Your Majesty was too powerful last night, and my younger sister has not recovered yet. She is physically and mentally exhausted. A slight movement can make one feel sore all over. This is not complaining, it's just showing off. Shangguan's demeanor is not particularly impressive. Although she is the Empress, she is not the first woman to be fortunate to the Emperor. It's simply not to be too angry. Seeing that Guan Fenger remained silent, Xiaomei continued, Sister, don't be discouraged. Sister is just lucky. Oh, it's also a coincidence. The eunuch next to me, is now the Crown Princess Lu Yun, who happens to have some medical skills. I showed it to Your Majesty last night, but I didn't expect it to be effective. Your Majesty's dragon face was so pleasing that she immediately rewarded my younger sister. You. Shangguan Fenger's lungs were almost bursting with anger, and she also heard about this matter. I only hate why I don't have this little eunuch by my side. Just then, another voice came from outside. Madam, Duke Lu has arrived. Xiao Mei quickly agreed, let him in quickly. Soon, Lu Yun walked into the inner hall of the Hall of Supreme Harmony. When he saw that it was very lively inside, he was also stunned. Especially for this empress, Lu Yun seems to have seen several faces in his memory, but he hasn't come close. Now, upon closer inspection, the Shangguan style exudes a national beauty and natural fragrance, with a dignified and elegant demeanor that truly captures the beauty of the country and the city. The feeling it gives is unattainable, holy and noble, and cannot be blasphemed. Beauty. How beautiful. For a moment, Lu Yun lost his mind and thought to himself, this empress is really a glutton of natural resources. How can she bear to let the empress guard the empty room alone? Farewell to the empress. Lady Shufei. Shangguan Fenger smiled lightly and walked up to him, saying, Gong, you don't need to be polite. Lu Yun has cured his majesty, and now his identity is different. We sisters in the harem should all give thanks to Grandpa Lu. Lu Yun shook his head and said, I dare not be a servant. Xiao Mei was a bit angry when she saw this scene. What does the empress want? Are you trying to win over Grandpa Lu in front of me? No way, Duke Lu will definitely achieve success in the future. With him in the harem, I can have more conversations with His Majesty. Chapter 6. Your Majesty, why did Xiao harm me? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Duke Lu, my consort is also here to congratulate you on becoming Your Majesty's Crown Prince. I will also rely more on you in the days to come. Shufei Xiao Mei said with a very respectful expression. Lu Yun glanced at her and quickly replied, it's all thanks to Empress Dowager. If it weren't for the Empress letting the servant go to see His Majesty last night, I'm afraid this wouldn't have happened. Upon hearing these flattering words, Xiao Mei's mood immediately brightened and she burst into laughter. She raised her eyebrows with some pride and looked at Shangguan Fenger. Shangguan Fenger's face became a bit stiff. Is this provoking her in person? Where, it's because Duke Lu already has this kind of ability. Duke Lu, you have done me a great favor. Alright, I'm here. You can bring up anything in the future, as long as I can do it. Originally, Xiao Mei was thinking of giving Lu Yun some rewards, such as gold, silver, and treasures. But the Empress is here, and I'm too embarrassed to mention it myself, so I can only go ahead and avoid it. Shangguan Fenger's expression became very eerie as she listened to the conversation between the two. She didn't know that Your Majesty's illness had been cured, and in fact, the greatest credit would also come to Xiao Mei's head. Even her elder brother Xiao He would follow suit and be exposed to light. So, shouldn't this rebellion in the 4 provinces of Southeast and South also fall on him? No way. Absolutely not. Shangguan Fenger also walked forward and said with a smile, Lord Lu, if you encounter any problems in the future, you can also come to this palace to handle them. My palace will also treat you well. Lu Yun thought to himself, why are all these people trying to please him one by one? However, it's also true that I have a different relationship with the Emperor now. These women, in the harem, do have to rely on themselves to speak. Whether or not to say, this time traveling is really enjoyable, thank you very much for the Empress's kindness. After speaking, Shangguan Fenger was about to leave, but suddenly she turned around and frowned, saying to Xiao Mei, Xiao sister, have you rested enough? You can't stay long in this Taihe palace. It's better to go back to your dormitory as soon as possible. Xiao Mei had a hint of resentment in her eyes, but couldn't say anything, so she had to agree, don't worry, madam. I will leave on my own. After Shangguan Fenger left, Xiao Mei quickly said to Lu Yun, Lord Lu, you wouldn't have defected to the Empress, would you? You are my person. Lu Yun awkwardly smiled and said, what does it mean to be your person? You are all mine. What cold words are still being said here, even though we already have skin ties? Speaking of which, I seem to be someone who counts as a female emperor. But he still said on the surface, don't worry, madam. That's good. After speaking, Xiao Mei called out to Xiao and said, Xiao, go prepare some silver bills for Duke Lu. Also, in the evening, I will send someone to bring you some gold, silver, and jewelry. Duke Lu, what do you think? Lu Yun was naturally filled with joy and agreed. In fact, his current status, these gold and silver treasures, are just additional items for him. There is not much difference between having it and not having it. Qianqing Hall. Liang Jing was sitting at the desk, preparing to handle the recent court affairs when suddenly a voice rang out from outside. Your Majesty, General Shang Guanyin is requesting an audience. What? Liang Jing furrowed his brows, and it was probably not right for the general to ask to see him at this moment. Shouldn't he rest and recuperate well in the mansion now? Let him in. In no time, Shang Guanyin, dressed in a court uniform and looking sickly, came to the main hall and said, I pay my respects to your Majesty. Liang Jing waved his hand and said, Get up, father. Yes, your Majesty. I only saw Shang Guanyin slowly standing up, feeling like he was about to faint at any moment. Liang Jing asked helplessly, General, why did you come to this palace to see me if you didn't take good care of yourself in the mansion? Shang Guan snorted coldly and said, Your Majesty, I have learned that many courtiers want General Xiao He, the brave cavalry, to go and quell the rebellion in the 4 southern provinces. Liang Jing awkwardly smiled and explained, the ministers are also considering your health. After all, General, you don't seem to be able to lead troops at the moment. This matter is of great significance, especially since you are a relative of mine. I naturally don't want any accidents to happen to you. Shang Guanyin naturally understood the emperor's meaning and sighed, Your Majesty's trust in me is something I naturally know. After all, my daughter is also Your Majesty's empress. Your Majesty, but I just learned today that in my daily meals, I have been poisoned by poisonous insects, which has led to my body becoming increasingly weak. Liang Jing was shocked and pale. Last night, he just had Shadow Guard 13 investigate that Shang Guanyin was seriously ill because of the influence of goo and poison. Why did Shang Guanyin find out about this matter today? General, how did you learn about this? Today, my son came to find a famous doctor, and he inquired and found out. However, this renowned doctor did not provide a solution. Liang Jing suddenly realized something was wrong. Coincidentally, there was a famous doctor, and then Shang Guanyin learned about it. You don't have to guess, Shang Guanyin will definitely say that the person who poisoned must be Xiao He. As expected, Shang Guanyin continued, Your Majesty, I believe that the person who poisoned must be Xiao He. If I am seriously ill, then he will naturally be the one who benefits the most from the court. He chose to take all the credit on him in order to be able to go on a campaign against the enemy. Liang Jing was very helpless. He was already aware of this, and it was certain that someone was deliberately provoking conflicts between their two families, even with himself. The people behind the scenes have not yet reached a conclusion, but now they are already igniting contradictions. Liang Jing shook his head and said, General, this matter is definitely not that simple. What I mean is that someone is stirring up the relationship between you behind your back. Shang Guanyin didn't believe it at all. He said angrily, Your Majesty, Xiao He can definitely do this. When he was a general under my command in his early years, I could tell that he definitely had this kind of mindset and great ambition. Liang Jing understood that Shang Guanyin could no longer understand any reason. One is because of poisoning, and the other is because the court officials have been constantly recommending Xiao He, causing his rationality to be completely lost. At this moment, Liang Jing suddenly thought of Lu Yun. For the current plan, it was better to cure the general's illness. Although Lu Yun doesn't know how to use Gudu, he doesn't say he can't cure it, does he? General, your health is important. Alright, I'll find someone for you to heal your body first, and we'll talk about the rest. Shang Guanyin couldn't swallow this breath, but he had no choice but to nod and agree. Thank you very much, Your Majesty. Chapter 7. Daughter, take Your Majesty tonight. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. In no time, Lu Yun was called to the Qianqing Hall. After seeing him, Shangguan Yun was also very puzzled. I can't understand, this eunuch seems to have never seen him in the palace before. Judging from his attire, he still seems to be an imperial father.in.law. I have seen Your Majesty before. Liang Jing nodded and said to Lu Yun, Duke Lu, this is the Grand General and also my father.in.law. Lu Yun gave a white glance. I know each other, you don't have to say. I know your medical skills are excellent, even more powerful than those in the hospital. Why don't you help the general take good care of his illness? What he is suffering from is Gudu. Lu Yun was taken aback for a moment, realizing that it was for this matter. Liang Jing was also very anxious at the moment, thinking to himself, Lu Yun, you must not let me down, otherwise I will castrate you directly. I also hope that you can calm this matter down and stabilize the general first. Lu Yun sighed and realized that he knew Gudu and could naturally help treat it, but he didn't know how to use it. That is a unique way in the Miao country. Fortunately, I have my own unique treatment method in my memory. Your Majesty, then you have found the right person. I really know how to govern. But Your Majesty, you didn't know before you came to find me. Let me ask you, what if I don't know how to treat you? Liang Jing was choked and suddenly looked a bit displeased. He thought to himself, You Lu Yun, are you joking with me? Of course, Liang Jing didn't lose his temper or say anything. On the contrary, Shangguan Yun looked very surprised. What is the situation? How can Your Majesty be so tolerant of this eunuch? How can this eunuch speak to His Majesty? Your Majesty is not yet angry. Something's wrong. Is it difficult? Is the Duke surnamed Lu in front of you the new eunuch favored by His Majesty? Thinking of this, Shangguan Yun couldn't help but respect Lu Yun and said, Grandpa Lu, you've worked hard. Lu Yun nodded, then went forward to check, and then asked someone to take the medicine box, take out the silver needle, and treat it in the way of acupuncture and moxibustion. After about a stick of incense, I only saw that Shangguan Yun's face had become extremely ugly, and there seemed to be something stirring on his skin. In an instant, small insects crawled out from his nose, ears, and mouth, looking extremely penetrating. Shangguan Yun can be considered to have lived on the battlefield for a long time, but he felt chilly and extremely disgusted by the scene before him. Upon seeing this, Lu Yun suddenly rushed to Liang Jing's side and hugged his slender waist, shouting urgently, Protect Your Majesty. Hurry up, someone. Liang Jing was stunned. Lu Yun was really brave, so he hugged himself like this. If it's two men, that's normal, but I'm a woman. Lu Yun's mouth curved upwards with a wicked smile. Hee, the waist of this female emperor is quite thin and has a good feel. It's normal for me to give your father.in.law a hug to treat his illness, isn't it? The voice inside the main hall quickly called in the imperial guards and some eunuchs outside the door. They were all terrified when they saw the scene before them and the crawling insects on the ground. However, they were also quick-witted and quickly killed all these insects with their knives. Although the insects look very small at this moment, Shangguan Yun was half kneeling on the ground, watching these chopped insects. He grabbed them with his hands and took out a piece of cloth from his pocket to wrap them up. This is all evidence. Evidence. Your Majesty, I'm not lying, it's just Gudu, it's Xiao he behind the scenes who wants to harm me. Liang Jing glanced at Lu Yun coldly and said, Shouldn't you let go of me? Lu Yun awkwardly smiled and said, Your Majesty, I was just worried about your comfort just now, and I wanted to urgently protect you. Your Majesty, shouldn't you blame me? Liang Jing gritted his teeth and said, No. The solid idea inside is, I really want to castrate you hard. Cough cough, General, I didn't say that you were lying. However, there are too many mysteries in this matter. General, please don't overthink it. Let's go back and recuperate well. I will discuss this matter with you in detail. Xiaoyunzi glanced at it and reluctantly agreed. At this moment, Lu Yun stopped him and said, "General, wait a moment. I'll write you a prescription. Although Gubu has solved it, the toxins in your body have not been completely eliminated. We still need to rely on drinking medicine." Xiaoyunzi was full of gratitude and bowed, saying, "Thank you very much, Duke Lu." After Xiaoyunzi left, Liang Jing breathed a sigh of relief and asked them all to go out. Suddenly, he became angry and said, "Lu Yun, you have eaten the courage of ambition leopard, and you dare to hug me. Your Majesty, didn't you say you won't investigate this matter? Why are you blaming me now?" said Lu Yun with a sweat. Liang Jingbai gave a fierce glance and said, "I really want to cut off that thing with a knife now." Lu Yun chuckled and said, "Your Majesty, this is not acceptable. If you cut off this thing from me, then your consort will suffer." Liang Jing was too lazy to bother him and sat on the dragon chair, saying with some sadness, "Last night we just learned that someone was deliberately provoking relationships. Create a rift between the general and Xiao He. Today, the general knew that he had been poisoned by Gu, and even specifically named him Xiao He. If this matter is not thoroughly investigated, it may have a significant impact. Lu Yun, what do you think?" Lu Yun shook his head and said, "Your Majesty, are you asking me? Then let's investigate and see who's behind the scenes causing the stumbling block. But it will take time to thoroughly investigate, and what your Majesty is currently missing the most is time. The expedition is imminent, and if the gap between the two families cannot be eliminated as soon as possible, the longer the delay, the more dangerous it becomes. That's it." Liang Jing let out a faint sigh. She just feels very restless now. At the same time, Cunning Hall. The Empress Xiaoyunzi met her father and was also surprised to learn about today's situation. At the same time, he also informed his father Xiaoyunzi of what happened last night. "Daughter, this Lu Yun seems really not easy. In just one night, your Majesty has been so pleased with him. It seems that in the future, your Majesty's relationship with him will be better and his power will also be greater." Xiaoyunzi nodded and said, "Father, don't worry, I will take more public transportation with Mr. Lu." Then, Xiaoyunzi patted the table again and angrily said, Xiao He and Xiao Mei are trying to take advantage of my illness to kill me. One wants to replace my position as a general, and the other wants to replace the position of the Lord of the Harem. Daughter, you must make your Majesty's favor with you tonight. Otherwise, your position would be dangerous." "Father, don't worry, your Majesty, I will definitely go and solve it. Additionally, regarding the matter of Xiao He, I will also go and take a nap and ask your Majesty." Chapter 8. Your Majesty, my body cannot bear it. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. At night, in the Qianqing Palace. Lu Yun lay lazily in the main hall, next to Liang Jing, and no one saw him anyway. Liang Jing didn't say anything, mainly, their relationship is very complicated now. As long as Lu Yun doesn't do anything special, she doesn't care. Sitting without sitting posture, standing without standing posture. In front of me like this, you are also considered the only one, Liang Jing said unhappily. Your Majesty, you can't say that, Lu Yun sighed with a hint of vicissitudes. Last night's fierce battle with Lady Shufei, my body really can't withstand it. I only feel back pain and soreness now. Whether to say it or not, the expression, voice, and Stop, shut up. Who made you speak foul language in front of me? Don't you want to listen? Your Majesty, you've been listening outside for a long time, said Lu Yun arrogantly, you. At this moment, a eunuch's loud voice rang out, Your Majesty, the Empress requests to see you. Liang Jing suddenly felt a little anxious. Why did the Empress come? Lu Yun quickly stood up and tidied up his demeanor. Speaking, Xiaoyunzi walked in and glanced at Lu Yun and Liang Jing in the main hall. I pay my respects to your Majesty. Liang Jing waved his hand and said, "Why did the Empress come over?" "Your Majesty." Shangguan Fenger let out a seductive voice, as if she was acting coquettishly. This sound made Lu Yun very uncomfortable, almost causing his leg to weaken and kneel down directly. This official demeanor looks very serious on the surface, but I didn't expect such flattery towards the emperor behind the scenes. Liang Jing didn't react much. No wonder the people in the harem said that the emperor seemed to be sick. Cough cough. I only saw that Shangguan Fenger hurriedly ran over, hooked Liang Jing's neck, and sat in her arms. "Your Majesty, I heard that your Majesty has improved. I feel very uncomfortable hearing about this matter." Liang Jing was stunned for a moment and puzzled. "Empress, shouldn't you be happy for me?" Shangguan Fenger shook her head and said with a sorrowful tone, "Your Majesty, you don't even know the first one to favor me. Instead, it made Xiao Mei cheaper." Liang Jing chuckled and said, "Well, Empress, I did overlook this point." Shangguan Fenger shook her head, her eyes furrowed, and she pouted, saying, "Your Majesty, I want it tonight too. You can't favor one over the other. I'm the queen, you can't do this." Liang Jing took a deep breath and thought to himself that he couldn't do this. "However, we can still agree to this matter. Anyway, Lu Yun is also quite capable." Okay, Empress, you can go to the Taihe Palace and wait." "I'll wait a moment, I'll definitely come." Upon hearing this, Shangguan Fenger couldn't help but be overjoyed and hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, really? Take it seriously, you go quickly." After Shangguan Fenger was bouncing away, Liang Jing suddenly looked at Lu Yun and said, "You're still going tonight, do you hear me? Only by coaxing these two people in the harem can I help Xiao He and the general resolve the misunderstanding. You are the key." Lu Yun widened his eyes with a swaying and leisurely expression. "Your Majesty, I'm afraid this won't work. I have been fighting against Lady Xufei for 3 hours last night. This is very tiring. Your Majesty, if my body is damaged, I won't be able to do such things for you again in the future. If this cow gets tired, the field won't be able to be plowed." Liang Jing's face darkened and he was very unhappy. "Don't think I forgot. You said last night that you could continue fighting for another 3 hours. Why can't we do it again today?" Lu Yun sighed and said, "Forget it. Since the emperor said that, what else can he do? Okay, it's not a big deal anyway. Just right, take a look at the posture of the empress." He thinking of this, Lu Yun showed a lewd smile, and Liang Jing frowned at him. Liang Jing said somewhat disdainfully, "What are you thinking?" "No, there isn't. Your Majesty, is it still like last night?" "Of course." The two of them were already ready to start today's performance, while at the same time, Shadow Guard 13 entered again through the back window. This startled Lu Yun. "This Shadow Guard is full of ghosts and ghosts. When I came in, there was not even a sound. Did you find out? Who is the person who came to the general's mansion today?" "It's just an ordinary doctor who died directly after leaving the general's mansion, and his body was found in a small alley." "What?" Liang Jing was greatly surprised. It seems that someone deliberately wanted the general to know about this matter. "Is there any trace of the person who poisoned?" Shadow Guard 13 shook his head and said, "Your Majesty, the people in the firewood house in their mansion have no idea about this matter. There's no problem with the person delivering the dishes. I think it's only possible that it's someone from the mansion." "Oh. Okay, go ahead and investigate. We must find the real culprit behind the scenes." After Shadow Guard 13 left, Lu Yun suddenly said, "Your Majesty, your Shadow Guards are too scary. Alright, stop talking nonsense and hurry to the Taihe Palace." Taihe Palace. Shangguan Fenger waited in the hall with joy, eagerly anticipating how His Majesty would bestow upon her. "Is it the same as what Xiao Mei said?" "I just don't know, Your Majesty was already so tired last night. Do you still have this energy tonight? Your Majesty, here you are. Liang Jing and Lu Yun arrived at the Taihe Palace together, and Shangguan Fenger quickly walked out to welcome them. She was wearing a very thin and transparent gauze skirt, her hair was loose, and her fair skin was also faintly visible. Especially, with her exquisite makeup and colorful candlelight, Lu Yun's heart was filled with joy. As soon as I think of it, it will be me and the Empress. It's so delightful. Liang Jing naturally saw Lu Yu's narrowed eyes and let out a cold snort in his heart. Sure enough, once a man has that thing, he knows how to think recklessly. I don't know, what's good about it? Cough cough, Empress, go to the dragon bed first. Shangguan Fenger was filled with joy and quickly rose to the back. Liang Jing also signaled to Lu Yun to quickly follow behind him and not fall behind. The two of them tiptoed in, and Liang Jing looked at Shangguan Fenger with seductive eyes, feeling nothing at all. He quickly blew out the candle and quickly said, Empress, I'm here. Your Majesty, I have been waiting for this scene for a long time. Come on. As soon as the words fell, Lu Yun was pushed onto the bed by Liang Jing and quickly ran out. Lu Yun cursed inwardly. Fortunately, all the candles were blown out and there was no light inside. Lu Yun chuckled and kissed Shangguan Fenger's lips. In an instant, Shangguan Fenger made a strange sound, causing her breathing to be rapid and her heart to start beating faster. She's too excited. Your Majesty, I am truly fortunate today. She responded enthusiastically. Chapter 9. General Xiao was assassinated. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The inner hall of Taihe Palace. The movements of Lu Yun and Shangguan Fenger were not significant, even the dragon bed was shaking with the earth and mountains, and their voices sounded very excited. Liang Jing sat outside and couldn't help but feel a strange sensation. She was originally a woman, and as the emperor, she has been working hard for the Zhou Dynasty over the years. I never even thought about the so-called child affair. But this kind of sound also stimulates her senses. Liang Jing felt a slight warmth in his body and couldn't help but touch his cheek, which was quite hot. Previously, she had been close to eunuchs and palace maids, but now there is a real man approaching her. Liang Jing suddenly realized that he seemed to have been ignited by something. In short, the closer she gets to Lu Yun, the more she becomes unable to extricate herself, and for some unknown reason. Another 3 hours have passed, and it can be said that Lu Yun was enjoying himself thoroughly. As for Shangguan Fenger, she felt an unprecedented beauty. She felt very painful but also very comfortable. Shangguan Fenger was sweating profusely and his eyes were blurred. After finishing the task, Lu Yun walked out from inside, feeling slightly weak. Your Majesty, it's your turn to go in, he said, say anything as soon as possible. I'm exhausted. Liang Jing couldn't help but glance blankly and whispered, You have made me wait for so long again. Can it be faster? Lu Yun shook his head and said in a low slush, the Empress is really too beautiful, I can't control it. Besides, Your Majesty, do you think this thing can stop as soon as you want? Liang Jing looked speechless and quickly walked inside, saying to Shangguan Fenger, Empress, how do you feel? Shangguan Fenger spoke with a somewhat flattering tone and a hint of weakness, saying, Your Majesty is so magnificent and impressive. I am truly happy today. Your Majesty, how could your time be so long? My concubine's heart is about to die. I heard before that I have been very powerful for half an hour. Liang Jing can't help but roast that I am not strong at all, but Lu Yun is. Looking at Shangguan Fenger's appearance, Liang Jing hugged her shoulder and patiently asked, Empress, did the father-in-law talk to you today? Is it because of Xiao's situation? He has always been haunted in his heart. Shangguan Fenger's consciousness was a bit blurry at this moment. Besides, after experiencing such a good thing today, she could only say, Your Majesty, I won't hide it from you. Father did say something to me today. He is a little dissatisfied with General Xiao. After all, as a general, my father doesn't want to be taken credit for it, let alone someone who wants to harm his life. Liang Jing explained helplessly, Empress, I'll give you some insight. Someone is secretly instigating the abbot and General Xiao. By doing so, let them engage in infighting. Empress, I will definitely try my best to investigate this matter. You should stabilize the emotions of the father-in-law as soon as possible. What do you think? The demeanor of Shangguan has long been subservient to the emperor's authority, especially in today's intense battle. She didn't even think about it and agreed directly, Your Majesty, I won't disappoint you. I will definitely persuade my father well. Your Majesty, you are so powerful that I am now suffering from back pain and fatigue. Your Majesty, let's rest earlier. Liang Jing hesitated for a moment and thought to himself, let's first make the Empress fall asleep, and then leave first. She doesn't want the Queen to wake up and suddenly take any action. What if she finds out she's not a man? At this moment, Lu Yun in the outer hall couldn't help but roll his eyes as he listened to their conversation. This credit all depends on me. If it weren't for me making the Queen so excited today, how could she be so easily persuaded? That is to say, on this night, Xiao Mansion, the residence of General Xiao He, the escort cavalry. Xiao He just received news from the palace today that a eunuch next to his sister has cured the emperor's old illness. At the same time, last night, I had a good chance. For their Xiao family, this is a good thing, after all, their younger sister became the emperor's first fortunate concubine in the harem. Even the queen doesn't have this kind of experience. Ha ha ha, it seems that in the future, our Xiao family will rise to prominence. Xiao He thought about it and rested. However, after about a few quarters of an hour, the Han mansion suddenly burst into an assassin wearing a black nightgown, holding a dazzling dagger in his hand, and quietly climbed up to the roof. Then, he arrived very accurately above the room where Xiao He was located. The assassin opened the tiles, stared below, took a careful look, and then rushed down like this. I don't know if this assassin intentionally did it, or for some reason, he stabbed the wrong person without bias. And Xiao He, who was originally a general, naturally had excellent martial arts skills. He, who had been mentally tense for a long time, also immediately woke up. In an instant, Xiao He drew a sword beside him without any hesitation. The two wrestled together, and the assassin stabbed Xiao He's arm, causing blood to flow out. He hung the lottery and was also very angry. But this assassin, however, was very slippery and turned around wanting to leave. However, Xiao He was not just an ordinary person. With a loud shout, the guards in the mansion came out and surrounded the assassin in groups. Xiao He's eyes were cold and he asked, "Who are you? Who sent you to assassinate this general?" As soon as he finished speaking, the assassin burst out laughing and said, "Do you want to know?" Dream. After speaking, he wiped his neck directly. Xiao He is foolish. Will he commit suicide without achieving assassination results? What exactly is the situation with this assassin? Xiao He walked forward and lifted the veil of the assassin. He didn't know him, but in his arms, he took out a token that read, Shangguan. A person from an official family. The next morning. The news of Empress Dowager's bedtime last night also spread throughout the entire harem. Upon hearing this news, Empress Dowager Xiao Mei sneered without any excitement. Your Majesty's body is truly robust. Empress, even so, Your Majesty's first lucky person is me, not you. You must be bothering His Majesty, so His Majesty can only agree. However, at this moment, the close attendant Xiao walked in and said nervously. Madam, it's not good. General Xiao was assassinated last night, and now this incident has spread throughout the entire court, causing a falling out among the ministers. They are preparing to go to court and handle this matter in front of His Majesty. Ah! Xiao Mei was immediately shocked and her expression appeared extremely flustered. What is the situation? Did my brother almost get killed last night? Who did this on earth? Chapter 10. Chaotang controversy becomes a vegetable market. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Taiha Hall. The main hall where the emperor and his courtiers discuss matters. At this time, the whole court was in a mess. The news that General Xiao was assassinated last night also spread like wildfire. The court was furious, and many people wanted to seek justice. And Liang Jing also knew about this matter. She could be said to have a worried expression on her face and didn't know how to handle it. This is really heartless. We want to make them two enemies. At this critical juncture, the one that is most likely to arouse suspicion is General Shang Guanyun. On the dragon chair, Liang Jingguan sat above, watching the courtiers below shouting incessantly. On the side, Lu Yun also saw such a large formation for the first time and thought to himself that going to court was a torture for the emperor. No wonder so many emperors are willing to be foolish rulers and unwilling to go to court. If I become emperor myself, I don't want to go to court every day. Your Majesty. While I was sleeping soundly last night, I suddenly encountered an assassin. If it weren't for my not sleeping too soundly, I might have died on the spot. Please conduct a thorough investigation, Your Majesty. Xiao he knelt on the main hall and shouted with a rather indignant expression. Some courtiers also stood up together and shouted in unison, I await your approval. Yang Zhong, the left prime minister of the great Zhou Dynasty, walked out and slowly said, Your Majesty, this matter is by no means that simple. I believe that this matter is closely related to the general. We just said to ask the general to take good care of his health and appoint General Piaoqi as the main general for this expedition. However, he was assassinated. The general must be jealous and cannot let go of this matter. He wants to take credit for it. Liang Jing hesitated for a moment and asked helplessly, what evidence is there? Zhuxiangua, this matter cannot be hasty or speculated on at will, otherwise it would be an injustice to our Grand General of Zhou. Besides, the Grand General is also my father-in-law, and I don't want this to happen. Left Prime Minister Yang Zhong snorted coldly and confidently said, Your Majesty, General Xiao he took out a token from the assassin after subduing him last night. This token comes from the residence of General Shangguan. It is well known that General Shangguan's servants, as well as some guards, carry his token of going to the official family with them. Really? Liang Jing frowned, even though she knew that the truth behind this matter was not simple. But if there really is such evidence, it's really difficult to reconcile. Last night, I just wanted the Empress to go and talk to the abbot properly, but I didn't expect such a thing to happen before I had a chance to say it. Liang Jing felt like he was always one step behind and didn't have time for anything. Xiao he directly pulled out the evidence he received last night and said, Your Majesty, this is the token. I absolutely dare not forge it at all. At that time, so many people saw it that I didn't have time to take action. My arm was also injured by this thief last night. Liang Jing looked at Lu Yun next to him and said, Go help me retrieve this token. Yes. Lu Yun walked forward and took the token, allowing Liang Jing to carefully examine it. Liang Jing held the token in his hand, rubbed it, and said helplessly, General Xiao, this matter should not be too hasty. We need to thoroughly investigate, but we can't make arbitrary inferences. It's just a token, it doesn't prove anything. As soon as these words were spoken, Left Prime Minister Yang Zhongqi remained calm and said coldly, Your Majesty, are you afraid of hurting the Empress's heart, or do you not want to hurt the father-in-law's heart? Does Your Majesty want to shield the general? Your Majesty, I have clearly written the laws of the Zhou Dynasty, which cannot be violated. Besides, General Xiao intimidated the northern border and made the Xiongnu dare not invade. He was a great hero of our Zhou Dynasty. If you continue to shield him, it may hurt the hearts of all the soldiers. This is extremely detrimental to my Zhou state. Liang Jing sat on the dragon chair, clenched his fists, feeling very angry in his heart. What does this left Prime Minister mean? Are you threatening me? Lu Yun was dozing off while listening, thinking to himself, these people are really idle. If they speak so grandly, can they definitely do it? It's nothing more than putting on a big hat and wanting the emperor to carefully consider it. Just as Liang Jing was in a dilemma, Right Prime Minister Wang An stood up and spat at Left Prime Minister. Sui Xiang, what do you mean by this? Are you pressuring your Majesty? I haven't figured things out yet, so you just put on a big hat here. What exactly is going on? Can't we just find the general to come over? Upon hearing these words, Liang Jing had no choice but to agree, I would like to present myself to General Xian. As soon as these words were spoken, many people present were curious. Isn't the general recuperating at home? Is he in good health? Can we still come to the main hall and confront each other in person? However, at this point, they had no other choice but to wait and see the outcome. In no time, Shangguan Yun arrived at the Hall of Supreme Harmony. He naturally learned the news, but he didn't panic at all. He walked with a strong and spirited demeanor, holding a box in his hand. I don't know, what is it? Just as Guan Yun walked up to the main hall and looked around at the courtiers, he let out a cold snort. Shangguan Yun, I have seen your Majesty before. General, please rise up. Liang Jing continued, General, can you recover? Shangguan Yun patted his chest and said with a smile, Your Majesty, please rest assured that your body has recovered and you can mount your horse to kill the enemy now. At this moment, Left Prime Minister Yang Zhong sneered, General, you are really working hard for the country. You can't even rest and rest. What's going on? General, is this because he's afraid General Xiao he might take your credit, that's why he targeted him with an assassin? Shangguan Yun's angry eyes widened and he glared fiercely at the Left Prime Minister. Fart it, Yang Zhong, be careful when you speak and don't have such a bad mouth, he said, General, I disdain killing and using such conspiracies and schemes. Whoever did it, you should go find him. What does it have to do with me when Xiao he encounters an assassin? However, General Xiao, is there something you should explain to me properly? As soon as they met, the two of them were at a loss and began to confront each other in front of so many people. Xiao he naturally had no fear and stared coldly at the other person, General, you really love to joke. What do I need to explain to you? After speaking, Shangguan Yun directly took out the goo insect that had crawled out of his body and angrily asked, Tell me, I'm in good condition. How could there be such a thing in my body? At this very moment, it's the time for the rectification of the 4 provinces in the southeast. General, I'm feeling unwell. Can't you take this opportunity to become the main commander on the expedition? Xiao he was stunned and said loudly, General, this is pure slander. Xiao wouldn't harm you, let alone this goo insect, which is unique to the Miao state. How do I get it?